Yes, the original title Tanglewood has two meanings. One is a small town in Canada, and Alison has always wanted to move to Canada out of a very repressed Irish childhood, and she's never managed to get there. In some ways it is her daughter Sophie who's making the journey for her. So Tanglewood is a real place in Canada, although she's never been there. But also there is a poem by a very fine Irish poet, and he describes marriage as being like two trees growing together in a forest, and growing so close that they lean on each other for comfort and companionship, but also they end up competing and fighting for space. And the novel is about, although it is about property and it is a thriller and all these other things, in some ways it is about the intimacy of marriage. I do think that Joëlle Losfeld has found a great title in Together Apart, which I think suits the book really, really well, and I'm really pleased with it. And titles often don't translate. But yes, that Tanglewood is this strange, mythical, dreamlike state where that undergrowth, that inner imaginations where all memories lodge and everything else. And so it is, to me, it has many meanings. So it is something real and something unreal.
And tangle in English means, I guess, confused situation?
Well, also it means if two things are gnarled together. And so it can mean complicated, but also Ireland some years ago got caught up in an economic bubble called the Celtic Tiger, and property prices rose. And at the time I was trying to buy a house. I'm a small Irish poet. I lived in a small house, but suddenly to buy a house with one more bedroom was going to cost me €1 million. It was suddenly, these extraordinary sort of things. So you actually have the Irish characters who get caught up in a boom, and they come from quite impoverished backgrounds, or a society that wasn't rich is suddenly rich, but is not rich with real money. So they're caught up in that bubble. And Leonard Cohen has a great song, and he says, things are going to slide in all directions. There won't be nothing you can measure anymore. And in some ways they live in a world where they can measure nothing anymore. But then the new wife, the young wife of one of the men in the book is Filipino, and she says to him, I can show you poverty. I can bring you to the Philippines. I can show you my father working in 3 jobs, day and night, to get us out of poverty. So I understand poverty. I thought you were rich, but you will never be rich because you will never have enough. Very often the non-Irish in the book, who are the people actually doing all the work and all the building, they have a very different view. Although the Irish barely notice them at the margins of the book, they can see what is happening, and they can see that this whole bubble is going to collapse. So you have these different perspectives in the book. Bubbles, because each marriage is a bubble, and each, the thing is that marriage is meant to be for life. Very often it is not for life. That is the reality. But even when if a couple stay married for 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, at the end of those 50 years, those people are totally different people than the people who got married, because they change, and if they do not change at the same pace, then the marriage falls apart. And so they are trapped in a bubble. And there are 2 couples in the book, and one is Alison and Chris, and they live in a small house, and they're trying desperately to move to a bigger house because they want to get away from the world that they live in. And Alison was very sick, and now she wants to just have a fresh start. And next door there is I've forgotten the names of the characters in my book. Ronan.
Yeah. And I don't remember the name of
Chris and Kim is the
Kim.
Yes. Yeah. You see, you understand, when I am writing a book, I will change the names of the characters 4 and 5 times, and finally I have them. You make the names fit the characters, and then finally when the book is published, I know the characters' names. But then a year later, I'm saying, what was the name I picked out? So Ronan is more ambitious, but again he's trapped, and some ways he has this absolutely beautiful young bride, but he's sometimes it is better to have the illusion, the aspiration, the thing you struggle to get, than to have the actuality. And so each of these marriages is dysfunctional in a different way, and yet there is love within each of these marriages, but there's also this competition for space and light.
Yeah. So her name is Alison in English, because in French it's Alice.
Oh God!
So her name is Alice.
Her name is Alice.
Yeah.
Alice. She was called Alison once. Her name is Alice. Okay. It is. They changed their names.
Yeah, I understand that.
And they changed. They. My characters do not behave. They do not obey me. It is absolutely yes, which is why I changed it from Alison to Alice, which I should remember.
Okay. So,
but it is better occasionally, because I meet many writers, and many of them are obsessed by their books, and they know everything about their books, and they get a bad review. And they go to bed with a pillow over their head for 3 days, and they cry and everything else. And I write the books and I forget about them. so I am because always what's interesting is the next project, project. But I really should know the names. I apologise.